This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now then, if you've been watching these Top 5 Tuesday videos for the past couple of weeks, then you'll know that I'm on a bit of a mission to choose my favourite, by no means the best, or the definitive, or the most influential, just my favourite albums from the 70s, from various different genres of rock. And the reason I'm picking on the 70s is because arguably it is, I think, the most fertile period of rock music. You had all of the different, like, prog rock, blues rock, hard rock, metal, punk, new wave of British heavy metal, and the list goes on. All these different genres of rock music that sort of emerged at some point between the years 1970 and 1980. So this week, I thought I'd turn my attention to progressive rock, prog rock. Now, this is a bit of a tricky one to nail down because, many people disagree on the parameters that you use to judge a good prog rock album or band. There's probably going to be one or two names that you associate with this genre that aren't cropping up on this list, but then again, these are just my favourites. You probably have your own. And, there'll probably be a couple of albums on this list that some people will say, that's not progressive rock, but I can assure you all of the albums that I'm going to mention here have been mentioned in Rolling Stone or New Musical Express or at some point in some august publication as being, indicative or representative of the genre of prog rock. So I think they all count. So here are my 5 favourite prog rock albums from the 70s, starting with
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Yeah, let's get the obvious one out of the way first, shall we? Dark Side of the Moon. I just think it's a masterpiece from beginning to end. I was on a course about, 25 years ago, in the late 90s at some point, anyway. And the course was to get me a qualification so I could go into schools and be one of those kind of visiting instrument teachers that, turns up at the school one day a week. And the guy who was running the course, the head lecturer, he was telling me that, when he was a kid, he'd seen the Beatles, and all the screaming fans and everything. Couldn't hear a note of music the Beatles were playing and thought this is ridiculous, and sort of developed an interest in Schubert and Mahler and, kind of Mozart and all that sort of stuff instead. Stuff where there weren't kind of hordes of screaming adolescents obliterating the music. And then later on, when he was a kind of a young adult, his new wife introduced him to Dark Side of the Moon, and that was the album that convinced him that this long-haired pop and rock music had some merit. In fact, he described that album, I vividly remember this from one of the lectures on this course, as being one of the most important pieces of suites of music written in the latter half of the 20th century. That might be over-egging the pudding a little bit, but I certainly think it is up there. It's just it's a masterpiece of an album, and any list of prog rock albums has to basically include this. You can't not talk about Dark Side. So there you go. Next,
The Snow Goose by Camel.
Yeah, an album which came out around about the same time as Dark Side of the Moon, and is often overshadowed by it, but I think it's equally as good. I genuinely do. It's an entire instrumental suite of tunes inspired by the Paul Gallico novella The Snow Goose. How I was introduced to this was by my English teacher at school. Clever thing this, the album was written as a soundtrack to the book. The book takes about the same, for an average speed reader, somebody reads at an average sort of speed. The album takes roughly the same amount of time to listen to as the book does to read. And, what a brilliant idea. What a brilliant concept to produce a soundtrack for a book. And what we did one, I think, drizzly Tuesday afternoon and during double English when I was at school, was the English teacher, Mr. Levan, he was called. He put this album on and we read through the book as a class. And, it just, that was the first time I'd even heard of the band Camel, let alone this album. And I thought, yeah. And I basically went out and bought the album, and I've loved it ever since. If you're not familiar with this or any of the other albums that I'm going to talk about today, I will link to them down in the description. But that is definitely one you should check out. The Snow Goose by Camel. Next.
Sunburst Finish by Bebop Deluxe.
Yes, you've got to love a bit of Bill Nelson and Bebop Deluxe, don't you? For me, I mean, they did a lot of albums, and for me, this is the pinnacle, really. Sunburst Finish, so many great tunes on there, Ships in the Night, Fair Exchange, Blazing Apostles, Life in the Air Age, there's just not a bad track on this album. The only thing I would say about this album is that all the songs are great, but go and check out the live album, which I don't know why I didn't bother including that, actually, because I've included live albums in these lists before. But yeah, Sunburst Finish was the album that came to me mind. What's the live album called? Oh yeah, Live in the Air Age. Where just all of these songs, well, not all of the songs, but most of the kind of big songs from this album get a live airing. Fantastic live album, but this is a brilliant studio album. I'm just going to listen to it. If you're not familiar with the work of Bill Nelson and Bebop Deluxe, then go and check out this album. What a guitar player, what a songwriter, what a band. Yeah, Sunburst Finish by Bebop Deluxe. Check it out. Next.
Crime of the Century by Supertramp.
Again, an album which often gets overshadowed by, the subsequent album that came out. You think of Supertramp and you're probably going to think of Breakfast in America, which is a good album. I won't have a thing said against it, but this, I feel, is a far, far better one. Crime of the Century. I mean, just for the sake of one track, Hide in Your Shell, the way that song builds to such a big climax is, absolutely fantastic. The production on the album is, incredible. That kind of thing in the 70s where a lot of the drum sounds sounded quite boxy and tight and not very and not very ambient, and then it kind of went a bit too far in the 80s, didn't it, where everything was sort of slathered in that big Phil Collins reverb drum sound. This just gets it right in terms of production and the songwriting and Roger Hodgson's voice. I mean, one of the great vocalists, I think. Some singers are, kind of great, powerful singers that can that have massive amounts of range, and some singers are more like what you would call character singers. That maybe they haven't got the greatest power or range in the voice, but they're immediately recognisable as who they are. Roger Hodgson, for me, kind of ticks both boxes there. He's immediately recognisable, and he's got, a great rock voice, I think. And this is it's by far and away Supertramp's best album. And, this is one of the ones that I was thinking I was maybe a little bit on shaky ground calling this a progressive rock album, but Rolling Stone call it a progressive rock album, so blame them, not me, if you disagree. So there you go. Crime of the Century by Supertramp, one of my favourite prog rock albums, and certainly my favourite Supertramp album. Next.
Left Overture by Kansas.
Yeah, no, it was the late 80s, and I just got my first ever CD player. I think we still called them compact disc players back then. Remember those things? And I was in a supermarket, and these big discount bins where basically everything's kind of reduced to clear. I was passing by one of those looking, I didn't have a lot of money, and I was looking for cheap CDs to play on my new toy, the CD player. And there was this rock compilation of kind of double CD. Remember the old big thick double CD boxes? It was in one of those. A rock compilation that had Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. And I seem to remember the Far Corporation's version of Stairway to Heaven was on there. Now there's a blast from the past. But one of the songs that was on this compilation that I bought was Carry On Wayward Son, or Carry On My Wayward Son, whichever is the correct title, I always forget. And, credited to Kansas. And I knew about Kansas because I'd been reading about them in guitar magazines, and that was, basically because Steve Morse had recently kind of been in one of the incarnations of them, and, so it was a name I was familiar with, as you were in those days, because you would you would read about certain music and try and get an idea of what it sounded like before you'd ever heard a note of music. But I knew that Kansas were a highly regarded band, and this was an example of their work. I didn't know that it wasn't Steve Morse playing on this song at that time. I thought it was. But anyway, yeah, listen to the song. Really loved it. I mean, just how can you not? It's just that song has got more variety in it than many entire albums. So went out and bought the album, and yeah, it does that thing that progressive rock does, doesn't it? It turns a lot of corners, and it's whimsical, and it's complex, and it just, it goes to a lot of different places, but it never seems to do that thing that a lot of progressive rock does for me, which is why there's a couple of bands who are conspicuous by their absence on this list, of sounding jarring and jagged and disjointed and and disconnected, just complexity for the sake of complexity. This is a complex album, but the complexity always seems to be in service of the music, and it's an album I haven't listened to for a while, actually, so I'm going to remedy that in the morning as I'm sitting downstairs with my first cup of coffee. It's usually what I do, put an album on and just kind of gradually prise my eyes open with the help of caffeine. So yeah, Left Overture by Kansas, absolute masterpiece of a progressive rock album, and I think it's, I don't think there's any doubt that one should be on the list. So there you go, those are my 5 favourite prog rock albums from the 70s. Let me know what yours are, let me know if you disagree with any of my choices, maybe you think that there's a couple on there that don't deserve to be on a list of prog rock albums, but as I say, each and every one of these albums has been mentioned at least once by some more august publication than this YouTube channel that I sit and blether away on. So, yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments. And that is pretty much the video for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it and found it relatively entertaining. If that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like while you're at it? Don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 p.m. UK time, where we drink beer and talk about music and guitars. What a great way to kick off the weekend. I'd love to see you there if you can make it, but for now I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.